My name is Adrian Clark. I am 32 years old, and one night at 2 a.m., my sister quietly slipped into my room and stole my credit card. By the next morning, over $14,000 of my savings had vanished into thin air. It felt like my chest caved in when I logged into my account that morning. Vacations, designer purses, lavish gifts for people who would never care about her the way family should. All gone. And it was my sister's name tied to every purchase. I stared at the screen, numb. She hadn't just stolen money, she had ripped apart the last fragile thread of trust between us. If you're watching this, drop a comment, hit like and subscribe. You know, people say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from blood. They're right. My sister, Amanda, was always the golden child. Blonde hair, flashing smile, the kind who never worked a real job yet somehow always had money for new shoes. Our father, Paul, adored her, he always had. He was a retired cop with a bark louder than his bite, but when it came to Amanda, he softened like wax near a flame. Then there was Mom, Cynthia. She carried herself like she lived on a stage, her makeup flawless even at breakfast. To her, appearances mattered more than honesty. She used to tell me, "Don't embarrass the family." Meanwhile, Amanda could crash cars and scream at waiters, and Mom would still defend her. And then there was me. The older sister, the one who always paid my bills, cooked my own meals and carried myself quietly. I wasn't glamorous. I wasn't dramatic. I was just responsible, which in my family was seen as boring. But the truth? I think my responsibility reminded them of what they weren't. I still remember being 16, standing in the cold outside my high school, waiting for Dad to pick me up after practice. I waited 2 hours. My breath clouded in the air. I called, but no answer. When I finally got home, Amanda was inside laughing because Dad had driven her and her friends to the mall instead. The humiliation stung worse than the cold. That memory came rushing back as I stared at my drained account. History was repeating itself. Only this time it wasn't a ride to the mall. It was my financial security. I dialed Amanda's number. Straight to voicemail. My hands shook. When she finally returned home 3 days later, she strutted into the living room with a new Louis Vuitton bag dangling from her arm. She didn't even try to hide it. "Oh, hey," she said casually, like she hadn't gutted my life. "You'll get the charges reversed. Don't be so dramatic." My father stood beside her. "Adrian," he said, his voice sharp. "Your sister made a mistake. Family helps family. You'll get your money back. Stop acting like a victim." That word, victim. It snapped something inside me. I wasn't their victim anymore. I wanted to scream. Instead, I clenched my jaw so hard I tasted blood. Amanda smirked at me like she knew she had won. Like she always did. But here's the thing about me. I don't fight back in the open. I don't shout. I don't beg for justice. I wait. And I set traps. That night, I slid a brand new card into my wallet. A card that looked perfectly real with my name embossed across the front. But it wasn't tied to any account. Just a shell. I placed my real card somewhere safe. And then I waited, knowing Amanda's greed wasn't finished. And when she struck again, I promised myself this time, she'd destroy herself, not me. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my bedroom door. And my heart began to race. The sound of those footsteps outside my door wasn't unfamiliar. Amanda always thought she was quiet, tiptoeing, holding her breath, pushing the carpet fibers like a cat. But I'd shared a hallway with her my whole life. I could recognize her presence in the dark, in the silence, in the tension of the air itself. My heart pounded, but this time I wasn't the prey. I slipped deeper under my covers, keeping my breathing slow and steady. I heard my doorknob twist. The door opened, ever so carefully, like she thought she was smarter than me. Amanda crept inside. A faint glow from the hallway light traced the outline of her body, the shine of her new bag dangling from her shoulder. She moved with purpose, her fingers reaching straight for the nightstand where my wallet rested. I let my hand clench into a fist under the blanket. It took every ounce of control not to leap up and scream at her. Instead, I let her take it. She opened my wallet, slid out the card, the fake one, and tucked it into her purse. Then she slipped away as quietly as she had come. When the door clicked shut, I exhaled. My body trembled, not from fear but from adrenaline. This time I wasn't helpless. This time she was holding a loaded gun without realizing it had no bullets. I barely slept. I lay in bed replaying her every move, her arrogance, her entitlement. The image of her smile burned into my mind. The next morning I made myself coffee, waiting for her to make her grand exit. Sure enough, Amanda breezed past me in a new floral dress, car keys jingling in her hand. "Don't wait up," she said lightly, eyes sparkling with that smug confidence only she could pull off. I watched her leave, and for the first time in years I smiled. 2 days later, my father stormed into my apartment. His face was red, his hands trembling as he slammed a crumpled letter onto my kitchen counter. "What the hell is this?" he barked. I unfolded the letter. It was from the credit card company. Amanda had maxed out the fake card. Charges totaling over $20,000 were listed. Luxury hotels, champagne dinners, a new flat-screen television. I feigned confusion, letting my brow knit together. "Dad, that's not my card. I reported mine stolen last week." "That one? It's a replacement they sent that wasn't even activated. It's worthless." His eyes narrowed. "Worthless? They're saying they're pursuing fraud charges." I sipped my coffee slowly, savoring the bitter heat. Then I guess Amanda will have to explain how she managed to spend thousands on a card that never had a dollar behind it. I'll never forget the silence that followed. The kind of silence that feels heavy, choking. My father's mouth opened, then closed. He wanted to shout, but he couldn't form the words. He knew. He knew she had taken it. I could almost see the scales in his head tipping. The years of protecting her, excusing her, defending her, finally weighed against the undeniable truth. But even then his loyalty clung like rust. "She's your sister," he muttered weakly. "Family forgives." I stared at him, my chest tight. Memories clawed at me again. Sitting on the back steps at 12 years old, tears in my eyes after Amanda had stolen my favorite necklace and laughed as I begged for it back. Dad had taken her side then too. "She's just playing," he'd said. No, she wasn't playing. She never was. And I wasn't forgiving. Not this time. That night Amanda returned home furious. She slammed the door so hard a picture frame rattled off the wall. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. "You set me up," she hissed. I looked at her calmly, my voice low. "You set yourself up." Her eyes blazed with rage, but beneath it for the first time I saw something else. Fear. And I knew I had her. But fear makes dangerous people unpredictable. When she lunged toward me, screaming, I realized just how far she was willing to go. Amanda's hands shot toward me, nails out like claws. She screamed, a shrill, unhinged sound that rattled my bones. I stumbled backward, my hips smacking against the counter, coffee spilling across the floor. Her face twisted, rage and desperation tangled together. She wasn't just mad. She was cornered. "Give me another card," she shrieked. "You think you can humiliate me like this? You think I'll let you ruin me?" I raised my hands defensively. My voice stayed calm even though my pulse throbbed in my ears. "Amanda, I didn't ruin you. You did that yourself." Her eyes darted around the room, frantic, like a wild animal looking for escape. She grabbed my purse off the chair and tore it open, tossing receipts, lip balm, and loose change onto the floor. That's when I saw my father standing in the doorway. His face was ghostly white, his fists clenched at his sides. For once, he wasn't defending her. He wasn't speaking at all. Amanda froze when she realized he was there. "Dad," her voice cracked, a pleading note I hadn't heard since we were kids. "She tricked me. She's trying to destroy me." My father's jaw flexed, the lines around his mouth deepening. "You stole from your sister." Again. The silence stretched like a knife between us. For a second I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then she glared at me, hatred rolling off her in waves. And that pity burned away. Later that night, when the chaos settled, I sat alone on my balcony. The city lights flickered like dying stars, and the cool air brushed against my skin. I thought about how long this had been brewing. Not just the money, but the years of betrayal stacked one on top of another. I remembered being 21, working double shifts at the diner to pay for textbooks, while Amanda strutted through the house in a brand new dress Dad had bought her just because. I'd cried quietly in the bathroom that night, my tears mixing with the smell of grease from my uniform. That ache in my chest now was the same ache from then, only sharper. But this time it wasn't just pain. It was clarity. The next morning Amanda was gone. No note. No text. Just gone. My father told me she had packed a bag and stormed out after their fight. Mom called me not long after, her voice dripping with venom. What did you do to your sister? She says you're trying to frame her. He's crying, Adrian. Do you know how awful this is for the family? I swallowed hard. She stole from me. And now she's being held accountable. Mom scoffed. You always exaggerate. You've been jealous of her your whole life. You can't stand that she's brighter, prettier, more. I hung up before she could finish. My hands shook, but not from weakness. From resolve. Over the next week, the walls began to close in on Amanda. The fake card had tripped security protocols, and every store she had used it at began demanding payment. Collection calls flooded Dad's phone. He raged, slammed doors, cursed my name, but none of it could erase the truth. Amanda had dug her own grave. But the part that made me cold inside? She still blamed me. One evening I found an envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a single note in Amanda's handwriting. You'll regret this. I swear it. The ink smeared slightly, like her hand had been trembling when she wrote it. My stomach twisted. Because I knew Amanda's threats were never empty. And the next move she made would change everything. I stared at that note long after the paper had gone cold in my hands. The words burned into me like a brand. You'll regret this. Amanda wasn't just angry anymore. She was desperate, cornered, and dangerous. The city outside my window felt louder that night, every car horn and siren rattling against the silence in my apartment. My chest tightened. I'd grown up learning to ignore her threats, but something about this one felt different. I tucked the note into my drawer, but the weight of it never left me. 2 days later, Mom invited me to a family dinner. Her exact words were, "We need to clear the air. Stop this before it goes too far." I knew better. So I went. When I walked into my parents' house, the air smelled like roast chicken, garlic bread, and lies. The dining table was set, candles flickering, wine already poured. My father sat at the head, his arms folded, his eyes hard. Mom stood at the stove, humming, pretending this was normal. And there was Amanda. She sat at the table in a crimson dress, her hair perfectly curled, makeup flawless. She looked like the victim she wanted them to see. Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp and unrelenting. "Well," Mom said cheerily, clapping her hands. "Now we can talk like adults." Amanda wasted no time. She leaned forward, her voice breaking, tears sliding down her cheeks with perfect theatrical timing. "Adrian set me up. She knew I'd take the card. She wanted me to get in trouble. She wants to ruin me." My chest burned. "You stole from me, Amanda. You drained $14,000 and then you went back for more. I didn't ruin you, you ruined yourself." "Enough." Dad's voice thundered. The wine glass near him trembled. "Both of you. This family will not collapse over money." I let out a bitter laugh. "It already has." For a moment, silence hung over the table. I felt their eyes on me, their judgment thick and suffocating. And then Amanda's mask slipped. "You think you're better than me," she spat, venom lacing her words. "Because you work some boring office job, because you live in your tiny little apartment, because you play by the rules? No one cares about you, Adrian. No one ever has." Her words sliced through me. I remembered being 13, standing on stage at my school recital, scanning the audience for my family. The empty seats where they should have been. They were at Amanda's cheer competition instead. My voice cracked mid-song that night. I can still feel the humiliation. I clenched my fists under the table. At least I don't destroy everyone who tries to love me. Amanda's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a cruel smile. "We'll see how long you keep that smug little attitude when you have nothing left." The dinner ended with shouting, my father pounding the table, my mother crying into her napkin. I left before dessert, my stomach knotted, my throat raw. Back in my apartment, the silence felt heavier than before. My phone buzzed with texts. Mom begging me to fix this, Dad demanding I apologize, Amanda sending nothing but a smirking emoji. But I didn't reply. Because I wasn't done yet. Amanda thought she knew how to manipulate, how to scheme. But she didn't know me. Not really. And I was just getting started. That night I pulled out my laptop. I had already kept receipts, screenshots, bank statements. I started compiling them piece by piece into something bigger. A dossier. A weapon. By the time I was finished, I had a file that painted Amanda not as a victim, but as the thief and liar she truly was. And I knew exactly who to send it to. The glow of my laptop lit up the room, the screen filled with evidence Amanda could never escape. Every screenshot of her purchases, every bank alert, every time-stamped withdrawal. I organized it meticulously, page after page, until the story told itself. She couldn't spin this. Not this time. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion gnawing at my bones. But underneath the fatigue was something sharper, steadier, resolve. Amanda had spent years twisting reality, making me look like the bitter, jealous sister. Now the truth was finally in my hands. The next morning I slipped the dossier into an envelope and mailed it, straight to the collections agency listed on the last fraud notice. I wanted them to see what I saw. The pattern, the intent, the undeniable proof of who had used the card. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was handing Amanda her own destruction. But revenge has a way of making time stretch. The days that followed felt long, each one pulsing with tension. My phone buzzed constantly. Dad's angry voicemails, Mom's tearful messages, Amanda's silence. That silence was the worst of all. I started to wonder when the other shoe would drop. One evening it finally did. I came home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. My stomach tightened as I pushed it open. Inside, the living room was chaos. Cushions slashed open, drawers emptied, papers scattered across the floor. And there she was. Amanda, standing in the middle of the mess, her eyes wild, her chest heaving. "You think you're so clever," she hissed, holding up a torn page from one of my files. "You think you can hand me over like I'm trash?" My pulse roared in my ears. "Amanda, get out." She shook her head, a manic laugh escaping her lips. "No. Not until you understand, you and me, we're the same. You just hide it better." Her words chilled me, because she believed it. I grabbed my phone, my hand trembling. "I'm calling the police." For a split second, fear flickered across her face. Then she lunged, snatching the phone from my grip and hurling it against the wall. It shattered into pieces. "Dad will never let this happen," she said, her voice low, dangerous. "He'll protect me. He always does." Her words hit me harder than the phone breaking, because I knew there was a chance she was right. But before I could answer, headlights flashed outside the window. A car door slammed. And then knocking. Loud, insistent knocking. Amanda froze. I pushed past her and opened the door. Two men in plain suits stood there, badges flashing in the porch light. "Debt investigators." "Adrian Clark?" one of them asked. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. They exchanged a look before the taller one spoke again. "We're here regarding fraudulent use of a credit card in your name. We'd like to ask you some questions." Amanda's face drained of color. "It wasn't her," she shouted, stepping forward. "It was me, but she set me up." The words tumbled out of her mouth before she realized what she had admitted. The investigators looked at each other, then at me. One of them calmly pulled out a notepad. In that moment, Amanda wasn't the golden child, the favorite, the untouchable one. She was just exposed. And I stood there watching her unravel, knowing I had finally tipped the scales. But as her voice cracked and her hands shook, I couldn't shake the feeling that Amanda wasn't done fighting. Oh, this was just the beginning. Amanda's voice cracked as she stumbled over excuses, her hands waving wildly. "She planned this. She wanted me to fall. I didn't mean to take the card. It was just lying there. She wanted me to." Her words spilled out, desperate, tangled. The investigators wrote them down with calm detachment, their pens scratching against paper like nails on stone. I stood there, silent. I didn't need to argue. Her confession hung heavy in the air, undeniable. For once, Amanda's own mouth was the weapon against her. They asked me to verify my identity, to explain the fake card. I told them the truth, how I had replaced my real one after the first theft, how I'd reported the loss immediately, how the replacement was never tied to any funds. My voice didn't shake. My evidence was clean. Amanda, meanwhile, was unraveling in real time. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "Dad, tell them. Tell them she's lying." Dad had arrived by then, summoned by Amanda's frantic texts. He stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes bouncing between us. For years he'd defended her. But even he couldn't rewrite what was happening right in front of him. "Enough, Amanda. he said finally, his voice hoarse. You've gone too far. That broke something inside her. She shrieked, kicked the coffee table, sent papers flying. The investigators stepped forward, firm but calm, and escorted her out. Her voice echoed down the hall, bitter, furious, promising revenge. And then silence. Just me, Dad, and the wreckage she'd left behind. He sat down heavily on the couch, his hands covering his face. I tried, he muttered. I tried to protect her. I swallowed hard. My chest hurt, but not from sympathy. No, it was from years of being invisible. You protected her at the cost of me, I whispered. And look where it got us. His shoulders sagged. For once he had no answer. In the weeks that followed, everything shifted. Amanda was charged with fraud. Mom blamed me endlessly, leaving angry voicemails about how I'd destroyed the family. Dad barely spoke at all, weighed down by the collapse of the illusion he'd built. But me. I breathed easier. For the first time in years I felt free. I decorated my apartment again, hung new curtains, bought fresh flowers every Sunday, painted my walls a soft blue that calmed me every time I walked in the door. Small things maybe, but they felt like reclaiming pieces of myself. Yet at night, when the city was quiet, I still heard Amanda's voice in my head. You'll regret this. Maybe she was right. Because betrayal never disappears. It lingers like smoke long after the fire's gone. But here's the truth. Regret wasn't mine to carry. One evening, as I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, I thought about every step that had led me here. The nights crying alone while Dad praised Amanda. The sacrifices I made to keep myself afloat while she squandered everything. The silence from my family when I begged for fairness. It had taken me 32 years to understand. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect. And I deserved that, even if it meant standing alone. If you're watching this, have you ever faced betrayal? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. The sun dipped below the skyline, painting the city in gold and shadow. I closed my eyes, breathing in the warm air, and for the first time in a long time I felt powerful. Amanda had lost everything because of her greed. And I had finally found myself. Family betrayal is the cruelest wound.